Church. How this will play out in the academy is uncertain. Mormon studies and Mormon history, for example, are solidly entrenched as subdisciplines and are part of common cultural parlance. The Church's decision to rebrand its most famous cultural entity as the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square is proof that this is a renaming venture with real teeth. Institutional efforts will require the cooperation of media, academics, and a wider public if a historical trend of a century and more is to be reversed. In that spirit, this book will generally refer to the Church of Jesus Christ and to the Church's members as Latter-day Saints or Saints, with the understanding that the terms Mormonism and Mormons may occasionally need to be used either to refer to a more amorphous cultural entity that transcends the institution or to be consistent with historical context. 2. History. What is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? The Church of Jesus Christ is a Christian denomination founded in 1830 by Joseph Smith. Neither Catholic nor Protestant, Latter-day Saints believe their church was founded as a restoration of original Christianity, when God directed Smith to preach the fullness of the gospel in an organization roughly modeled on New Testament forms, performing saving sacraments with authority bestowed on him by angelic messengers. The distinctive hallmark of the church was the Book of Mormon, which Smith published shortly before the church's founding. It made these early saints a people of the book, like the Jews, Muslims, and other Christians. The Book of Mormon singled them out as a unique branch of Christianity and gave the group its popular moniker, and its miraculous translation from gold plates was heralded by believers as the most conspicuous sign of Smith's prophetic vocation and authority. Though believers in Jesus Christ as Savior, they espouse a body of doctrine that is often quite distinct from those of their Christian peers. Smith preached a doctrine of gathering, and his people flocked to gathering sites in Ohio and later Missouri. Fleeing persecution, they settled in Illinois, where they built a temple based on Old Testament precedent, grew by thousands, and created a prosperous community, Nauvoo. In 1844, Joseph Smith was martyred. The saints were forced into exile, and they settled after a long trek in the valley of the Great Salt Lake. After decades in relative isolation, they abandoned the practice of plural marriage, which had heightened their cultural and religious marginalization, ceased their practice of gathering to Zion, and began their march toward becoming an international, worldwide community. Today they number in the millions, with members in some 170 countries and principalities. What circumstances gave rise to the birth of the Church of Jesus Christ? The intense human craving for relief from the fears of death and damnation has given rise to many cataclysms and innovations in the history of Christianity. In traditional Catholic belief, salvation comes from belonging to the true Church, receiving its sacraments from authorized administrators, and living faithfully. Those conditions provide a degree of assurance that may fall short of absolute certitude, but is as close to a guarantee as is possible in this world. Providing such assurance was a conspicuous function of the Catholic Church. That role was radically undermined by the Protestant Reformation critique of the Church sacraments as the necessary channels through which grace is administered, and of the role of human effort in securing salvation. In the Protestant world in which Joseph Smith grew up, an emphasis on the sinful self and the horrors of hell left many seekers anxious for the state of their souls. A popular 18th-century anthology, collection of English prose and verse, captured the religious terrors that had become increasingly common. One contributor agonized over the vast uncertainty I am struggling with, the force and vivacity of my apprehensions. Every doubt wears the face of horror, and would perfectly overwhelm me but for some faint gleams of hope which dart across the tremendous gloom. What tongue can utter the anguish of a soul suspended between the extremes of infinite joy or eternal misery? I tremble and shudder. When the waves of revivalism that originated in the Second Great Awakening of the early 19th century swept over the upstate New York of Joseph Smith's youth, he found himself, along with thousands of others, consumed by anxiety about the state of his soul.